You know, as a lead guitar player, there are so many techniques that you can learn and so many cool ways to express yourself on guitar. Today I'm going to talk about 3 basic techniques that as you master these, you will not only be a better guitar player, but you will be able to develop your own style and personality on the guitar. So let's get into it. The first technique we're going to talk about is hammer-ons and pull-offs. So a hammer-on is where you pick one note and then you hammer on to the next note. So you pick one, hammer on to the next one, pick one, hammer on to the next one. Any string, pick one, hammer on to the next one. So a pull-off is just the opposite. You're going to pick a note and you're going to pull off to the other note. So pick a note, pull off to the other note, any string. Now the cool thing is when you put the hammer-ons and pull-offs all together. So let's just take the 2nd string. I'm going to play the 5th fret with my index finger. And again, I'm going to play my ring finger on the 8th fret, 2nd string. And all I'm going to do is just, I'm not picking at all. Now that's really called a trill. And another way of doing that would be like do 1 fret. Kind of a Randy Rhoads kind of thing there. Again, you can pick one, hammer on, pick one, pull off, whatever you want to do. All kinds of different ways you can do hammer-ons and pull-offs. You can pick and just kind of do some scale stuff like this. Here's a sequence where you pick a note and you hammer on, but you just keep that going. So it sounds like this. There's all kinds of licks you can do with hammer-ons and pull-offs. So check this out. If I did that without the hammer-on and pull-off, it would be like this. That's picking every note. But with the hammer-ons and pull-offs, it just gives it a little bit of a different sound. And sometimes you can pull off playing something with a hammer-on and pull-off a little bit easier, faster than you could if you were just picking every note. So here's some cool ways I like to use hammer-ons and pull-offs. So let's say you're playing the A blues scale. So here's one thing you could do. Here's a sequence you could do. Here's some different licks you can play with hammer-ons and pull-offs. Again, all within this A blues scale. Okay, the next technique we're going to talk about is bending strings. Now I know really just bending strings, I mean that's pretty simple to figure out. I mean it doesn't take a whole lot to understand what that means. However, to be really good at bending the strings and making them sound right, it does take some work, takes some practice, and it does take some just knowing how to position your left hand so you can get the bends correctly without, you know, coming up flat or going sharp or anything like that. So here's just to give you some examples. So what I can do is I can bend this note. I'm playing the 3rd string, 7th fret, and I'm going to bend this note to that note or here. So I'm bending this note to that note. So whenever you bend that string and bend that note, you got to make sure you hit the other note. So every time. Now there's a few things you can do to really position your left hand to be a little bit more successful. However, it really is more of a preference, I believe. So what I don't want to do with my left hand is have my fingers spread out too far, because then it's kind of hard to bend that string and make it sound good. If I give myself a little bit more leverage and to where I'm kind of focused on this one note and using both fingers to bend up. And the whole goal, once again, is I should be hitting that note right there. So what we want to do, talk about bending strings, is just different ways you can bend the strings. So let's stay within our A blues scale that we talked about. And so once again, this is a basic bend right here. And that's pretty common. Then there's one here. You can bend any note anywhere on the guitar. Certain ones are a little bit harder to get right. If you notice, all of these bends I'm doing so far are what I would call whole step bends. So basically I'm playing a note here and I'm bending up a whole step or a full step or 2 frets, if you will. So you can bend up 2 frets, or you could bend up just to the 1 fret. So in this blues scale, the notes are, so I could bend up to just this note. So here, I'm bending to that note. Here, I'm bending to that note. Or that note, however you want to look at it. So some of the cool things you can do with bends, once again, it's all about whatever scale you're playing and just knowing what note you can bend up to. So if I was playing this note here and I just wanted to bend up to that note there, then once again, it's just a simple. However, you can do bends with your index finger or your middle finger. And one of the things you really have to do is make sure you're muting all the other strings. That's another video there, but muting the strings is very, very important for all the techniques and all the ways that you're going to be playing guitar. So think of just muting all these other strings so they don't make noise, and you only want to hear the one that you're playing. So part of my hand right here that's kind of resting on the strings, and then I've got my thumb that's over this top string. And once again, I'm just trying to get that bend to sound really good. So if I just do a half step, which is 1 fret, bend, once again, it's going from this note to that note. I'm taking this finger, and whenever I bend the note up, I'm also grabbing this 3rd string right here so it don't make any noise. And once again, I'm muting the other strings. So that's just an idea of how to mute the strings to where your bends sound right. So that's the 2 keys, is make sure you bend to the note that you need to and that you're trying to hit, and also just mute the other strings so the bend sounds really smooth. The 3rd technique we're going to talk about is vibrato. There's so many different ways of accomplishing this, but basically it's just taking a note and you're just moving it up and down, or you're moving it in some way to where you're getting that vibrato sound. To hit a note and do that right there. Or if you were to have like a tremolo bar, playing it like that. So the cool thing about vibrato is there's so many different styles to play in vibrato. So what I want to do now is show you a quick clip of some of my favorite guitar players. And once again, all your guitar heroes are going to be using some form of vibrato, and they all are going to have something that's unique to their style, and you can just kind of tell it's them for the most part. So here's a clip of Eric Clapton. Here is B.B. King. Now check out Stevie Ray Vaughan. Check out Richie Sambora. And the last one is Zakk Wylde. He definitely has a signature vibrato style. Check it out. Now let's talk a little bit about how you blend the two techniques, bending the strings and vibrato. So basically, when you bend a string, you can bend the string and then hit the vibrato. It's kind of like singing. When you're singing a song, and if you're a vocalist, you don't hit that note with vibrato immediately. You hit the note first, and then hit the vibrato. So you want to do the same thing with guitar. You want to hit the note and then hit the vibrato. So you hit the note first and then hit the vibrato. So that's just one style of doing that. So there's so many different ways that you can blend the two. Another thing I highly recommend is to practice these techniques in your solos and improvising over jam tracks. And there's a great site that I recommend. It's a YouTube channel called Elevated Jam Tracks. I'll put a link in the description for you. As you continue working on these techniques and developing your own style as a lead guitar player, it is also very helpful to be able to solo over the entire fretboard in any key. I have another video that talks all about that. So click the video on your screen or the one I'll link below and I'll see you there.